The Fallout series must have a gabillion non-player characters littered across each of the game's wastelands. Well, maybe not a gabillion, but a whole lot. From notable characters like Three Dog and Benny, Harold and Preston, to utterly unremarkable characters like Bleak and Gilbert, Dando and Ursula. Fallout has a whole heap of characters. And it's due to this massive roster of NPCs and such that sometimes certain names get used more than once, like Kate, Michelangelo's assistant in New Vegas, and Kate Stone, the last known overseer of Vault 11, and Smiling Kate, a raider leader in the Commonwealth, and Bleeding Kate, a raider in Appalachia, and Kate, a woman who was killed by a raider in Nuka World. And this got me thinking. It got me curious, if you will. I posed a question to myself. A question that would spiral me down a rabbit hole of endless wiki pages, multiple GECK and creation kit visits, and plenty of Googs. That's short for Google searches. I asked, what is the most commonly used name for Fallout's characters? And so, with only this question guiding me, I set out on my very own Fallout side quest. I wanted to find out what the most common NPC names were in the entirety of the Fallout series. Let's get into it. Now, going through every single name that appears in Fallout would be a tad too, all-encompassing, and definitely more than likely, very boring. And so my list only includes names that make an appearance 10 or so times throughout the franchise. This means no Karens, no Felixes. I know it might sound like we're excluding a lot of names, but I've looked at over 2,000 Fallout characters just to find the most common names. I can't guarantee that a couple names and characters haven't fallen through the cracks, but the numbers I'm about to spit out at you should be pretty reflective of the most popular names in the franchise. And I think you'd be surprised at just how many Jameses, Johns, and Jacobs happen to show up. Anywho, I suppose doing this in alphabetical order would make the most sense. So to the A's we go. First up is Alan. Between two common spellings, one with two L's and an E, and the other with one L and an A, there are 14 Allens in the Fallout universe. Notable Allens include Alan from Fallout 3's The Family, Alan Benet of the Institute in Fallout 4, and Alan Marks, the deceased Sunset Sarsaparilla Star bottle cap collector in New Vegas. Then there are the Alexanders and Alexes. There are 10 of them. Some women, some men. There's Alex Richards, the doctor working at Camp Forlorn Hope in New Vegas. There's also Alex Guerrera, a ghoulish Mothman cultist. After that comes the Allisons and Alices, 12 total. Notably, there is only one Allison spelled with a single L, Allison Perkins, an entirely irrelevant character that is only ever mentioned in a single random holotape about some company's HR meeting. More notable Alices include Alice McLafferty, the branch manager for New Vegas's Crimson Caravan, or Allison Valentine, a mechanic at the Hoover Dam who had apparently lost their friend Ben. R.I.P. Ben. Then we have the Andrews and Andys. But this is around the point of my research where I ran into a bit of a perplexing problem. And that's the names that share similar origins, or are names that act as the female version of other names. Like, Andre is clearly its own name, but Google tells me that Andre is a French and Portuguese version of Andrew, and both names come from the same origin or meaning, that being the word brave. Likewise, we have the same problem for Andrea. In many places, Andrea is considered the female form of Andrew, and so I made the executive decision to bunch these names together. Is it the best way of performing this hard-hitting analysis? I don't know, but that's the way that I decided to do it. Take it up with the big boss if you got a problem with it. So, Andrew, Andy, Andre, and Andrea, 22 of them. Half of them are Andrews, though. Notable NPCs include Sergeant Andrews, captured by the Legion in New Vegas, Andrea Brixley, the Brotherhood of Steel Elder in the cancelled Van Buren game, Andre Michaud, a bedridden harborman in Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC, and Andy the Mr. Handy, who ruined your birthday cake. I'm sure it's still salvageable. Another case where we've grouped names is with Angela. It turns out that Angela has plenty of nickname options that don't make them sound like the cat lady from The Office. They might go by Angie, Anne, or even Anna if they're feeling a bit adventurous. Across the series, there are 33 NPCs who go by one of these 4 names. Most of them go by Anna though, with a total count of 13. Notable NPCs include Anna Winslow, the ghost in Fallout 2's The Den. Then there's Anna Marie Morgan, a Brotherhood of Steel outcast in Fallout 3. Oh yeah, anytime I saw someone with 2 first names or even a hyphenated name, I took the first name for the purposes of being consistent. Sorry, Robert Joseph McCready, you are now a Robert for the purposes of this video. There's also Fallout 3's Princess and Little Lamplight, whose real name is Angela. And there's also Angie, who's part of the random encounter self-admitted synth in Fallout 4. Just like Andrew name grouping, Anthony faces a similar problem. Anthony's can go by Tony, but Tony is also a nickname for people named Antonio. And so we've had to group Anthony, Antonio, and Tony into a single group. There are 19 NPCs that go by one of these names. There's Anthony House, the half-brother of Robert House. There's also Antonio Tony Russo, the head of the Russo family, or Tony with an I, a recruit in Fallout Tactics. Believe it or not, that's it for the A names. Only 6 name groupings exceed the minimum count of 10. Names like Aaron, Abraham, Adam, and Austin didn't pass my arbitrary cutoff. Sorry. Poor Austin Ingle, though. Not only is he infected with some incurable disease, but he's also the only Austin NPC to appear in the franchise. At least he doesn't have to put his last name on his school test papers. That must be nice. The Bs start with the Benjamins, the Bens, and the singular Benny. There are 14 of them. These include notable characters such as Old Ben, the Freeside local who's done a bit of everything, and maybe a bit of everyone, and the Benjamin Franklin Protectron, a character that is only mentioned in a single terminal entry in Fallout 3's National Archives. What's that? You don't think that should count? You don't think that the BFran 001 Benjamin Franklin unit should count for the purposes of this very scientific and very accurate data analysis? Well, I think it should count, and I'm the one making this video, so I make the rules. Sorry. Then our other B name is Brian, one with an I, and another spelling with a Y. There are 10 Brians in Fallout. These include characters like Brian Virgil, the Runaway Institute scientist turned super mutant, but there's also Brian Wilkes, the young boy who asks the Lone Wanderer for help with taking down some giant ants. And that's it for the B names. Some names that missed the cutoff were Bruce, like Bruce Isaac, a singer hiding in Novak in New Vegas, or Butch, like Butch Deloria from Fallout 3, or Butch Harris, the owner of Fargo Traders in the first Fallout, or Butch, a dead guy in Fallout 2, or Butch, someone who used to work as an enforcer for Duchess, or Butch Mariano, an NCR lieutenant in the cancelled Van Buren game. Lots of Butches, more than you'd expect, but not enough to make the 10-character cutoff. The first C names are the Catherines, Cathys, Kates, and Cats. The unfortunate bit is that all of these could also start with K. For transparency, this list includes both the C and K spellings. I don't really see a need to separate them. Catherine is the same as Catherine, and there are 20 of them. The most notable one is Kate, the cage fighter companion in Fallout 4, but others include Catherine, the Lone Wanderer's mother, Kate Stone, the last Vault 11 overseer, and Kathy, the hairdresser in Diamond City. Oh, and there's also a random background Kathy in the Fallout TV series. Really random, I know. This next set of C names is the most disgusting grouping of names, but I had to do it. This was the first part of my research where I started to second guess how I was formatting this data and research. The next set of names are the Charleses. And you might be thinking, oh, Charles is such an easy name, and that's not so bad. But Charles also includes the common nickname of Charlie. I guess that's expected. But did you know that Chucky and Chuck are also nicknames for Charlie? So those are included. Oh, but you can't forget that Carl with a C and Carl with a K are also actual possible nicknames for Charles, so those are included. But just as we've included female versions for names like Andrea and Andrew, we have to include the female version of Charles, so Charlotte is in. But if we include Carl with a C and Carl with a K, then surely we have to include Carla with a C and Carla with a K. So all of a sudden we have 9 total names that are some variation of Charles. If I've lost you, that's perfectly okay. I kinda lost myself here too. Anywho, there are a total of 62 NPCs with some variation of Charles for a name. There is Charles Curling, a scientist in Fallout 2. There's Quartermaster Carl in New Vegas, Trash Can Carla in Fallout 4, and also the only Chucky in Fallout, a raider that is only mentioned in a random terminal entry in Fallout 3. Whew, that sucked. Surely there will be no other miserable name groupings. Surely. After Charles are the Chris's. This includes any long form of Chris, so Christopher, Christian, and of course, Christine. There are 26 of them. These include NPCs like Christopher Avalone, the most feared bounty hunter in the first Fallout, not to be confused with Chris Avalone, the mayor of Springfield in Fallout Tactics. And there's of course the most infamous Chris in all of Fallout, Christine Royce, the mute companion in New Vegas' Dead Money DLC. Now, this is the tough part about finding the most common name. Are Claire and Clara distinct names? They're similar, kind of like Alice and Allison, but it's not really like one name is derived from the other. And so I've made the executive decision of just clumping them together. There are only 11 Claires and Claras in the entirety of Fallout. Now, the wildest part about that is not a single Clara or Claire makes a physical appearance in the Fallout series. They're all just mentioned through notes, terminals, what have you. Isn't that wild? And to round out the C's, we have the Connors with an O, the Connors with an E, and the Connies. This also includes Conrad Kellogg, because why not? Old Connie Kellogg deserves some recognition too. There are 11. These include NPCs like Connor from the Anti-Material Creation Club content, and also Connie Abernathy, the wife of Blake Abernathy, at the Abernathy Farm in the Commonwealth. On to the big D's. Now, you should already know some of the D names that we're going to see. If Daniel isn't the most popular D name, I don't know what else is. This Dan grouping includes Daniel, Dan, Danny, and Danielle. There are 37 of them. This includes Daniel Bird, the Enclave's vice president in Fallout 2, Honest Dan, the hired caravan guard looking for Old Man Stockton's daughter, Danny Sullivan, the Diamond City gatekeeper, and Danielle Malili, buried in the Good Springs Cemetery. Now, if Daniel isn't the most popular D name, then David would have to be the other most popular name. David, Dave, and Davy. According to my counts, there are 34 NPCs with some variation of David as a name. This includes characters such as David Thorpe, Raider Leader turned Scorch, Dave of Republic of Dave fame, and good old Private Davy Crenshaw. I think it's funny to frame him for the bomb plot. Is that so wrong? Is it so wrong of me to frame him for a terror attack that he definitely didn't do? I don't know, but I think it's funny. And the final D name that makes the cutoff is Derek. One spelled with 5 letters, the other spelled with 7 letters. Isn't that disgusting? There are 13 of them, with only 4 going by the longer 7-letter version. The Derek group has characters like Derek A.C. Garrison, the leader of the Secret Service in Vault 79, and Derek Taylor, an Appalachian settler originally from the pit. Honestly, not a lot of notable Dereks. On to the E's. First up is a big group, the Edwards. This includes names such as Edward, Eddie, Ed, Edgar, Edwin, and Edna. Lots of names, but actually not many NPCs, only 25. We got all the Eds. There's Edward Deegan, a Cabot family aide. There's Eddie Winter, the ghoulish organized crime guy. There's Ed, the skeleton outside of Vault 13. There's Edwin Broch, the Vault 101 teacher. There's Edgar Hardin, the head paladin of the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel. And there's Miss Edna, a Miss Nanny robot that helps out at the school in Diamond City. After the Eds, we have another name with a ton of short forms and nicknames, and that's Elizabeth. Now, you're gonna have to trust me on this. Included in this group are names such as Liz, Lizzie, Beth, Libby, Lisa, Ella, Betty, Betsy, Bessie, and the male equivalent, Eli. I know it might not seem like all those are nicknames for Elizabeth, but I checked, and it turns out that they can be. And who am I to say that Bessie, the sentry bot at the Wayward, doesn't have the full government name of Elizabeth? I don't want to make that judgment call, so they're all grouped together. It's kinda cringe, I agree. Now, despite having a billion names and nicknames, there are only 44 NPCs with any of the aforementioned names. It's a lot of names, but relatively few NPCs per name. Like, you'd think with all the names in this category that there would be like 100 NPCs or something. But alas, only 44. We got Elizabeth Taggarty, the leader of Taggarty's Thunder. There's Ella Ames, member of the Free States. We've got Lisa from Vault 13. There's Beth from Fallout Tactics. Betsy the Brahmin, the cut supposed Brahmin pet in New Vegas. There's Betty, Stanislaus Braun's child avatar in the Tranquility Lane sim. Yeah, maybe not too many Elizabeths and Elizabeth-adjacent names in this franchise. And our last E name is Evan, and that's it. I don't want to hear your argument saying, oh, but Nort, Eve, or Evie should be the male equivalent of Evan. Why didn't you include them? Well, one, because I make the rules, and two, because I think Eve and Evie are nicknames for Evelyn, and you can't convince me that Evelyn is the female equivalent of Evan. Google agrees with me, by the way, and Google could never be wrong. There are 11 Evans in Fallout. Evan King, Evan Watson, and Evan Holyfield, to name a few. First up for the Fs is Franklin, Frankie, Frank, and Francis. There are 34 of them. We have Franklin G. Henderson, a company director. There's Frankie Beckett, Beckett's brother. There is Francis Perry, a skeleton detective, and a whole lot of Franks, like Frank Carlson, the VP of the NCR in Fallout 2. Then we have the Freds and Fredericks, 14 of them. This includes guys like Frederick Sinclair, the owner of the Sierra Madre, and Fred Wilkes, Brian Wilkes' dead dad. R.I.P. Fred. The alphabet song tells me that G comes after F. In a fun twist for all of you Harry Potter fans, George is the first name for the G's. Get it? Because Fred and George? Haha. Fallout has, according to my numbers, 25 Georges. There's also one Jorge that I could find, and supposedly that's the Spanish variation of George. There's George Newsbaum, trapped in the Tranquility Lane sim, George Wilson of Wilson Automatoys fame, the makers of the Giddy Up Buttercup, and George Yaff, this guy in the Fallout series. After George, we have the Gerald group. This includes names like Gerard, Jerry, Gary, Jerry with a J, Jeremiah, and Jeremy. Yeah, a couple J names snuck in there. But I use the same reasoning for names like Andrew or Andre. Anyway, we have 56 Geralds, Jerrys, and Jeremys, according to my count, that is. Gerald Spencer used to live at University Point. Gerard Miles was an attorney that lived in Vault 11. Jeremiah was a member of the Children of the Cathedral. Jeremy Watson was an NCR soldier being honored during President Kimball's speech. And of course, we have the Gary clones. Despite supposedly having hundreds of clones, 14 of them physically appear in Fallout 3. Then we have 18 Gregorys and Gregs. Gregory is part of the Vault City Council in Fallout 2, and Greg Kodiak Bear is a Brotherhood Paladin part of Lion's Pride in Fallout 3. that one was easy. After G comes H. We'll start with the Harolds, Harrys, Henrys, Hanks, Harriets, and Hetties. I counted 56. How many did you get? What's that? You didn't count all the Harolds, Henrys, and Hanks? Well, then I guess let's hope the teacher didn't notice. We've got Harold, the infamous FEV mutant turned tree guy. There's Henry Casden, the leader of the Outcasts, and Hank McLean, the overseer of Vault 33. Damn fine cup of coffee. And that's it for the letter H. Unfortunately, there aren't 10 or more characters that share the same name that starts with the letter I. So folks like Ian, the Fallout 1 companion, or Isaac, the guy who hangs outside of Gunrunners, aren't in the competition for the most common character name. Buckle up for this one, we have a lot of J's. So many J's that you'd think we were the love child of Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa. Jack, Jackie, Jackson, and the lone Jacqueline. 50 of them. We've got Jack Smith, the patriarch of Andale in the Capital Wasteland, Jackie, a member of the Free Radicals gang in Appalachia, and Jackson, an NCR ranger at the Mojave outpost. After Jack comes Jacob and Jake. There are 31 characters with either name. You've got characters like Jake Irwin, an NCR soldier at the embassy in New Vegas, and Jacob, Marcus's friend and co-founder of Broken Hills. Then we have Janice, Janet, and Jane. And no, Jangles is the male equivalent of Jane, so sorry Mr. Moon Monkey, you're not part of this. I counted 19 Jani, like octopi. There's Jackpot Jane, the creature fight manager in Redding in Fallout 2. There's Janet, the love interest for Jack the Boomer in New Vegas, and Janice Kaplinsky is killed by Colonel Autumn in Fallout 3. R.I.P. Janice. After that, we have 17 Jasons and Jays. Guys like Jason Bright, the leader of the Bright Brotherhood, and Jay Barnes, the dead detective at the Ultralux. No Jasons with the spelling like Jason Tatum, though. Certified bum. Then we have 19 Jennifers, Jennies, and Jens. There are a few notable Jen-related characters. Jennifer is a Brotherhood of Steel paladin in Lost Hills in the first Fallout. The runaway synth in Green Tech Genetics is formerly K108, but goes by Jenny. And Jen is the daughter of the former Chinese spy, Mochu. Then comes a big one. There are a whopping 80 characters named either James, Jim, or Jimmy. If you've been keeping track, that's the most so far. There are so many Jameses. James Hargrave, James Shue, James Garrett, James Sexton, James Your Dad. Just so many Jameses. A couple of Jimmys, Jagged Jimmy J, and Jimmy in West Side are notable, and a handful of Jims. Uncle Jim, Jim Grimm, Jim Wilkins, to name a few. After that, we got the Joseph, Josephine, Joel, Joe, and Joe grouping. That's Joe with an E and Joe without an E. 33 of them. One Josephine is mentioned in a series of terminal entries at Sedgwick Hall in Fallout 4. Joel Chambers was a former state senator who lived in Vault 51 in Appalachia. Joseph Palatley is the commanding officer at Camp Forlorn Hope in New Vegas. Tinker Joe sells Sergeant RL3 to you in Fallout 3, and Joe Mayfield is the head of the Blue Ridge Caravan Company in Fallout 76. No JoJo's, but we do have a Joe Jack Jr. Then we have another heavy hitter. 85 characters in Fallout are either named Jonathan, John with an H, John with no H, Johnny with an H, Johnny with no H, and there are a few characters that even go by Johnson. As a reminder, I'm not counting last names, but if an NPC is only named Johnson or we only know Johnson as their name, like the doctor in Redding, then I counted it. Aside from him though, some other notable Johns are John Adiglio, a dead Vault 92 resident, Jonathan Maxon, the father of Elder Maxon in Fallout 4, John Cassidy, a companion and father to Cass. No, her name isn't Cass Cassidy, by the way. There's Greasy Johnny, the leader of the Greaser Gang in New Vegas, and of course Johnson Nash, the Mojave Express supervisor. After the Johns, we have 10 Joshuas and Joshes. Josh Lawrence is the bartender of the Last Gasp Saloon in Reading in Fallout 2, and Joshua Graham is the disgraced legate turned burned man. And the last group of J's, I told you there were a lot, are the Julias, Julies, and Juleses. I counted a total of 12. It's mentioned in a terminal entry that Julia Masters is the CFO of Repcon Aerospace. She would later make an appearance in the Fallout TV show. Jules is a town guard in the North Vegas Square, and Julie Farkas is the leader of the Followers of the Apocalypse at the Old Mormon Fort in New Vegas. The first K name we have on the docket is the Kens: Kenneth, Kenny, and Kendall. I tallied up 17 of them. You've got notable characters such as Uncle Ken from Far Harbor, Kenneth Aguilar, the president of the Sunset Sarsaparilla Company, and the only character with Kendall as a first name, Kendall Lucy, one of the original residents of Vault 87 who died from the FEV experiments, and Kenny Weathers, a slave in Cottonwood Cove. There are 11 Kevins, that rhymed, and one Kevin with an A. In Fallout 2, Kevin is an Enclave mechanic at the Navarro base, and Kevin with an A. Asherton is one of the co-founders of the Revenants, introduced in the Ghoul Within update in Fallout 76. The last K name is Kyle. Fallout has 14 Kyles. This includes notable Kyles such as Kyle, the super mutant guard at the LA Vault, Kyle, a Brotherhood mechanic at Lost Hills, and Kyle, a dog that belonged to the deceased Evan O'Dude. Oh dude, poor pups waiting for their owner to wake up. A couple of L names make the list, with the first one being Lawrence and Larry. 15 Larrys, 3 Lawrences. There's Smiling Larry, a weapons merchant in Fallout 3, Toxic Larry, the owner of Toxic Larry's Meet and Go. I don't really want to know what a Meet and Go is. There's Lawrence Higgs, a biochemist in the Institute, and a fun one is Lawrence Ronald, a member of Bud's Buds program. I don't want to flex, but come on, that's a good catch, right? Then we have 19 Leonards, Lennys, and Leos. There's Leonard Steeple, a former VP of Repcon Aerospace, Lenny, a ghoul doctor and potential companion to the Chosen One, and of course Uncle Leo, the friendly super mutant which can be found as part of the random encounter. Nice fella, that Uncle Leo. I counted 13 Leroys and Roys, more Roys than Leroys, but such is life. There's Leroy Walker, a slaver in the Capital Wasteland, and there's Roy Phillips, the ghoul who desperately wants to be let into Tenpenny Tower. He's really just the Eric Andre meme. After that, there are 18 Lous. This includes Louis with an O and a U, Lewis with an E and a W, and even a Luan, spelled Luann. I've never seen that spelling in my life, but it is what it is. There's Lieutenant, the super mutant lieutenant and right-hand man, or mutant of the master. There's Louise, the bartender of the Malamute Saloon in Reading, Luis Salvador, the head of the Salvatore's family in New Reno, and Lewis, the creator of Biv E. Ridge and Nuka Shine. That stuff's potent. Then we have 27 Lucius-derived names. That includes Lucas, Luke, Luca, Lucy, and Lucia. And also Lucius. Lucius is the commander of Kaiser's Praetorian Guard. Red Lucy, Lucy Cranchester, Lucy West, and Lucy McLean are some of the Lucys, and then there's Knight Lucia at the Boston airport. Blind Luke is a dead guy in the New Vegas sewers, and Lucas Sims is the sheriff and mayor of Megaton. To start for the M's, we have the Margarets, Marjories, Marges, Magses, and Maggies. I counted 27. Margaret Primrose owns the Café Beaumont in Fallout 3. Marge LaBarge owns the Cocoa Weef mine in Fallout 2. Marjorie is the founder of the White Glove Society in New Vegas. Mags Black leads the operators in Nuka World. And Maggie is some kid that roams around Megaton. Then we have the Marcuses, Marks, and Marcos, all with either a C or a K. There are 44. The most notable Marcus is the super mutant from Fallout 2 and New Vegas. Other notable characters are Mark, one of the original members of the Mariposa expedition, Marco, a pit slave who gives you an auto axe, and Mark Wilson, the son of George Wilson and the second president of Wilson Automatoys. Good old family business. Get ready for another big group of names. Next up is Mary, Maria, Mary with a Y, Marianne with a Y, Marianne with an I, Marilyn, and Molly. Google said Molly was a short form of Mary, so who am I to question the almighty Google? 47 in total. There's Maria Chavez, the deceased leader of the responders in Fallout 76, Marianne, an escort in the Cut Van Buren, Mary Jo is another escort in the Cut Van Buren, Marilyn was an employee of the AVR Medical Center, and then there's Mary, the baby with the supposed antibodies to cure the troglodyte degeneration contagion in the pit. Popular name, that. Following the Marys comes the Martins, Martinezes, Martys, and Marthas. I've got 32 of them. Examples include Martin Retzlaff, the deceased head of the Hopeville Missile Base in Lonesome Road. Martha Simpson is a trapped Vault 112 resident. Martinez, the only one with an unidentified first name, was a member of the Appalachian Brotherhood of Steel. And Marty Bullfinch was the former partner of Nick Valentine. Maybe venturing to a super mutant stronghold alone in just a suit was a bad idea. Then we have 13 Matthews and Matts. We have Matt, the caravan driver in the first Fallout, who spells his name with only one T. There is Matt, the Brotherhood of Steel agent who gets killed by Frank Horrigan, and Matthew Fry was an original Vault 87 dweller who died during the FEV experiments. Not a ton of Matts. After that comes the Maxes. There are some Maxwells, 2 Maximuses, and 1 Maximo. That totals out to 11. Not many. Maxwell is a Mr. Handy in Vault 118 in Far Harbor. There was going to be a Max in the cancelled Fallout film. Maximo Leone was a child taken by the Brotherhood 1st Expeditionary Force in Fallout 76, and 1 Maximus stars in the Fallout TV series, and another Maximus can be found in Fallout Tactics. Do you ever think Maximus's mom's name is Maximum? Hee. More M's, by the way. Next we have Melissa and Mel. Again, there are 11. Notable characters include Melissa Lewis, a Great Con found at the Great Con encampment in the Quarry Junction, and Mel, a mugger in the Capital Wasteland that can be randomly found. He's a bit of a lame duck. One of the most popular names are the Michaels. This group includes the Mikes, Mikeys, Micks, Mickeys, Michelles, Michaelas, and Google told me that Miguel would also fit. A whopping 68 characters have one of these names. Some notable NPCs include Michelangelo, Mike Wright, Mikey Frazier, Miguel Caldera, Mickey, that guy outside of Megaton, Mick from Mick and Ralph's, and Michelle Kerr. And our final M name is Mitchell and Mitch, 10. Part of the reason why there are so few is because a lot of the Mitchells act as last names more often than first names. But there's Mitchell Hibbs, the pre-war foreman of the Blackwater Mine, and Mitchell Linehan, a young boy who's supposed to live in Vault 114. As for Mitch's, there is the owner of the all-in-one store in the hub, and Mitch Stiller, who is supposed to be the police captain of the Hoover Dam settlement in Van Buren. Whew, that rounds out all the M's. Now for the N's. Nathaniel, Nathan, and Nate are surprisingly common with a total of 14 characters. Of course, there's the male sole survivor, Nate. There's also Old Nate, a skeleton in a wheelchair who appeared to have wheeled himself off a ledge to his death. Then we have Nathaniel Vargas from Megaton, and Nathan Fillmore, an Institute scientist. Then the other N name is Nick, Nicholas, and Nicole. I counted 15. Nick Valentine would probably be the most well-known, but there's also Nicole, the leader of the Followers of the Apocalypse in the first Fallout. The naming group of Oliver, Ollie, and Olivia just squeak into this video with a total of 10 instances. Oliver Swanick won the only lottery that matters in New Vegas. Olivia Rivers is the daughter of the Mistress of Mystery, Shannon Rivers, and Ollie was seemingly someone who lived in Vault 21. But that's it for the O names. First up for the P names are the Pats, Patricks, and Patricias. Pat Newsbaum is George Newsbaum's wife and is also stuck in the Vault 112 simulation. Patrick is a chem addict at the Drumlin Diner in Fallout 4, and Patricia Montgomery is the doctor in Covenant in the Commonwealth. 16 Pauls, Paulines, and Pollies are in Fallout. Pauline Wins, along with her partner, stole Vance's 9mm from the Vicky and Vance Casino. Paul Hannon Sr. and Jr. are residents of Vault 101, and Polly Cantelli is the co-owner of a Quick Fix in Rivet City. Then there are 21 Peters, Peteys, and Petes. Popular Petes include Easy Pete, the former prospector living in Goodsprings. Squirrel, a child slave in Fallout 3, has the real name of Peter, and Petey is a deceased raider at the Sunday Brothers cabin in Fallout 76. And our last P names are Philip, Philippe, and Phil. According to my counts, there are 22. There are a lot of instances of the name Phillips as a last name, but of course those weren't counted. Philippe is the head chef of the Gourmand restaurant at the Ultralux. According to a holotape, Philip Granger was the first NCR ambassador to New Vegas, and Phil, the Nuka-Cola dude, is the guy that refills the Nuka-Cola vending machines in Fallout Tactics. Thanks for keeping them stocked up, Phil. To the surprise of no one, there aren't many Q names in Fallout, and none of them reach the 10-character cutoff. So folks like Quinn, the ghoul scavenger from the Underworld in Fallout 3, are not represented on this list. But we do have plenty of R names. To start, we've got Randall, Rand, Randy, and Miranda. 15 of them. Randall Clark is the survivalist in Honest Hearts. There is a deceased settler named Randy at Spectacle Island in Fallout 4. Miranda Song is a resident of Vault 81. And Rand was a technician who worked at ArcJet Systems before the Great War. Then we have Ralph and Raul. I'm gonna hide behind Google for a lot of these name groupings. Google said Raul can be a nickname for Ralph, so who am I to question it? There are 12 Rauls and Ralphs. Raul from New Vegas is quite clearly the most relevant NPC. As for Ralph, I think Ralphie the Robot is a fun one. Ralphie was an iBot and the main character of a pre-war TV show. Then there are the Richards, Ricks, Rickies, and a singular Dick. 32 total. Richard Gray was the dude who eventually became the Master. Rick Lancer is one of the Fiend's prisoners in Vault 3. Ricky is the guy who pretends to be a Vault 22 dweller at the start of the Honest Hearts DLC. And Dick Richardson was the president of the Enclave during the events of Fallout 2. Not too many Dicks in Fallout. Next up, we have another big group of names. 3 seconds to guess what it is. 3, 2, 1. It's Robert, Rob, Bob, Bert, Robbie, Bobby, and Robin. There are 72 of these folks. Of course, the series' most famous Robert is Robert Edwin House. Then there's Iguana Bob, the owner of Bob's Iguana Bits in the first Fallout. Bobby No-Nose is a professional criminal in Good Neighbor. Little Rob is a Blood Eagle raider in Appalachia. Robin is one of the recruits in Fallout Tactics, and Bert was the husband of Steph in the Fallout TV series. R.I.P. Bert. Then we have 11 Ryans. Ryan Briggs is a raider scientist working on some mole rat glue meat in the Jury Street metro station in Fallout 3. Wonder glue mixed with mole rat meat. Yum. How appetizing. Moving on to the S's. First, we have the Samuels, Sams, Sammys, and Samanthas. Combined, there are 39 characters with one of these names. Sam Blackwell was a West Virginia senator who was catching on to the Enclave conspiracy before being assassinated after the Great War. Samuel Kerr is the father of Michelle Kerr at the 188 trading post in New Vegas. Sammy Wins stole Vance's 9mm machine gun with his partner Pauline Wins. And there are only 3 Samanthas, with one being Samantha Hatchett, the VP of Marketing for Hallucigen Inc. Yeah, I couldn't find a single Samantha that appears as an NPC in any of the games. After the Sams, we have the Sandras and Sandys. I counted 12, which is a bit surprising. I didn't think it was that common of a name. The most notable Sandra is probably Sandra Kundanika, the scientist and mother of baby Marie in the Pit DLC. Not many notable Sandys though. One of the Vault 13 residents was named Sandy. Then we have the Sarahs with an H, the Sarahs without an H, and I also learned that Sally is apparently a nickname for Sarah. Who knew? Not me, that's for sure. 36 characters have one of these names. Sarah Weintraub runs the Vault 21 Hotel in New Vegas. Sarah Matthew lives in the Retreat. She was named after the late Bethesda developer and QA tester of the same name. That's a nice way to immortalize someone. And Sally from the Mothership Zeta DLC helps you escape the alien spaceship. Thanks, Sally. 16 Scotts appear across the series. The most notable Scott is probably Scott Walensky, whose alter ego was the Mechanist in Fallout 3. Fallout has 13 characters either named Sheila or Shelley. In Fallout 2, Sheila is an escort in the Den, and Shelley Van Lowe was the owner of Van Lowe Taxidermy in Lewisburg. She is also the sister of Calvin Van Lowe, aka Ares, aka the inventor of the Sheep Squatch. Then we have 11 Smitties or Smiths. As you'd expect, there are a lot of folks who have some random first name and then they have Smith as a last name. Those folks were not included in the count. Notable Smiths, though, are Smith, a Brotherhood of Steel mechanic in Fallout Tactics, and Smith, a Vault City farmer. As for Smitty, there are only a few, one of which being, again, a mechanic in the Den West Side in Fallout 2. It's a fitting name for mechanics, I guess. The last set of S names are the Stevens, Steves, and Stephanies. There are 29 of them. And just like Smith, there are a lot of folks with the last name Stevens. Again, just like Smith, those weren't counted. Steven Scarberry is a camp ally in Fallout 76, Stevie Mack is part of the Vault 101 security team in Fallout 3, and Steph Harper was the wife to Bert. R.I.P. Bert. First up, Fallout has 18 characters named Theodore or Ted. Theodore Collins operates Long Neck Lukowski's cannery in Fallout 4. Ted Gunderson is the missing son of Heck Gunderson. The White Glove Society plans to eat him as part of their return to tradition. How nice. After the Teds, we have Terrence, Terry, Teresa, and Tracy. Google said Tracy could either be short for Patricia or Teresa, so I chose Teresa just cuz. There are 16 of them. Terrence was a Vexillarius, part of Kaiser's Legion in the cancelled Van Buren. Terry Tanaka was one of the original settlers of Nuka World before the Raiders came in. Tracy Kwan was a soldier who died in the first battle of Hoover Dam, and Teresa was a resident of Vault 13 in the first Fallout. Then we have another popular name with Tom. This group includes Tom, Thomas, Tommy, and Thompson. 46 according to my count. Some notable Toms are Tinker Tom from Fallout 4, Tommy Ten Toes, a Blue Ridge Caravan Company guard. Then there's the Thomas Jefferson Protectron, that counts, right? And there's Thompson, a deceased Talon Company mercenary. Probably a last name, but as they've only been identified as Thompson, I guess we'll never know. Then we have 17 Timothys and Tims. These include guys like Tim Schutz, a feral ghoul in the Dunwich Borers, and Timothy, an escaped synth asking for directions to Bunker Hill, both from Fallout 4. This should come as a surprise to no one, but there aren't 10 or more characters who share the same U name. Sorry, Ulysses, you're on your own, bud. The first V names are the 12 Victors and Victorias. Prominent characters are Victor the Securitron in New Vegas, and Victoria Watts, a member of the Railroad in Fallout 3. After that comes Vincent, Vince, Vinny, and Vin, 17 of them. There's a Vincent May Lilly, a RoboBrain teacher at the Watoga High School in Fallout 76. There's Vinny, the leader of the Skulls in Junktown in the first Fallout. There's Vince, a raider leader in Van Buren. And there's Vin Russo, the bartender of the Rose Room in Fallout 76. Wowee. For the W's, we have Walter, Wallace, and Wally, 16 of them. And unsurprisingly, a lot of the Wallaces are last names. Again, those weren't counted. But there is a Venderbot Wallace at the Berkeley Springs station. Walter Phoebus is a Brahmin rancher visiting New Vegas, seeking revenge on the Henderson family, and Wally Mack is a Vault 101 dweller, part of the Tunnel Snakes gang. Tunnel Snakes rule. Another W name that appears quite frequently is William. This name group includes William, Williams, Will, Willie, Bill, and Billy. Lots of names, lots of characters. 76 according to my count. There is William Black, the second in command of the operators in Nuka World. There's an Enclave officer at Raven Rock named Williams. Coffin Willie was a ghoul that was buried alive in Fallout 2. There was a resident of University Point named Will, who was killed during the Institute's attack on the settlement. Bill Foster is yet another Vault 112 resident trapped in the Tranquility Lane simulation, and Bowie is a poor little lamplighter who is bullied for his lisp. Poor guy. To the surprise of absolutely no one, there aren't enough X characters to meet the cutoff. Sorry, Zurso, you're on your own. Not enough Y-named characters to meet my cutoff either. Sorry, Scorpion's gang leader named Yvette. Sucks to be you. And the only Z names to make this list is Zachary and Zack. I counted 11. Funnily enough, there's only one Zack with the Z-A-C-H spelling. He is the Mr. Handy robot who handles the Dross Toss at Camden Park. And there are no Zacks with the Z-A-C spelling. Every other Zack in Fallout is either Zachary with an H or Zack with a K. Some notable Zacks include Zack, the gunrunner's merchant in the first Fallout, and Zachary Lloyd, a soldier who fought in the Alaskan conflict, as mentioned by some holotapes in the Op Anchorage DLC. And finally, that wraps up all of the Fallout names with 10 or more characters. As for a summary, the most common name is some variation of John with 85, whether that be Jonathan, Johnny, or so forth. James and the nickname Jim or Jimmy comes in second with 80 instances, and third is William, Will, Bill, and such at 76. I suppose it's unsurprising that names with a lot of nicknames show up frequently across the series. What's a tad surprising, though, is that despite it appearing as a last name several times, I couldn't find a single character with the first name Taylor. Isn't that something? But that wraps up my little side quest. Mission accomplished. Plus XP, minus some sanity. I'll admit, I don't know if that's a fair trade-off. That's all from me today, folks. If you liked the video, be sure to share and subscribe. Join the Discord. What names need more representation in Fallout? Does your own name commonly appear? Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
No matter what your fortunes, no matter what your cares, let go this night and begin again.